Hi, welcome to the Leadership with Sonia podcast. Everything leadership, life and learning, plus outstanding interviews with great leaders and humans across the globe. Let's get listening and learning.
Hello everybody, it's Sonia McDonald here and welcome to Leadership with Sonia. And as you know, we talk everything and anything about leadership, courage, kindness, love, because we all love leadership, and we believe that the world needs more great leaders and more great humans. And today I get to speak to another great leader and great human. And she is a finalist in the 2024 Outstanding Leadership Awards. And Jane and I, her name is Jane. She's the COO of Teach for Australia. We've had a wonderful conversation offline. We're both so excited about celebrating and championing great leadership very soon. And I wanted to say thank you so much for being on Leadership with Sonia today, Jane. It's such an honor to speak with you.
Thank you, Sonia. It's really nice to be here, and I am looking forward to celebrating leadership on Saturday night, as well as through this podcast today.
Yes, it's going to be a magical evening because we're trying to create more role models. So if we get more role models like yourself out there, because we do what we see, our generations of today and tomorrow have wonderful hope, and that's what we need. We need hope. And I would love to know, Jane, tell me your story. How did you get to where you are today? Now, today you're working for Teach for Australia. Tell us a little bit about your story.
Well, my story starts, maybe I'll start from being a single mum. I was a single mum at the age of 20, and I took myself off to university and studied a double major in mathematics and joined the Defence Force as a civvy. So I was a civilian mathematician, the Defence Force for quite some time, about 8 years in operations. And then, as you can imagine, I'm got used to being one of the very few females in a total male environment. So I moved from there into Telstra. Again, one of very few females in a very male environment, and you learn a certain amount of leadership, personal leadership, in those environments. Being a single mum, female in a very male-dominated environment, there's a lot of personal leadership to be developed. And moving from Telstra, I got made redundant from Telstra, like lots of other people in Australia. I moved into consulting or contracting in various forms, and eventually landed in the education sector. So I've done a lot of consulting in universities, TAFEs, and that's where I find my real passion, and my passion for Teach for Australia, being in the education sector, working at education at all levels, secondary schools, TAFEs, universities, and having found a passion for my environment, my subject matter, has allowed me to really find a passion in what I want to live through in that environment. So I landed on education. I like consulting, and then I really like developing teams and running consulting teams. And consulting can be a great world when you've got five different teams in 5 different universities, and you're flipping from one to the other, or 5 different environments, and leading teams remotely and agilely. And then, I landed here in not-for-profit land at Teach for Australia, being the Chief Operating Officer, and thoroughly enjoying it.
Tell me a little bit about Teach for Australia. What's your whole mission, purpose? Tell us a little bit about what Teach for Australia does.
So Teach for Australia tackles education inequality. The postcode in which you live in Australia absolutely dictates the sort of education that you receive. We have some very low socioeconomic schools where getting an education is really challenging, and they're the schools that we work with, and they're the schools in which we tackle education inequality. So we recruit amazing individuals after their degree or through their career, they've decided to do a career change, and we bring them into what we call the Leadership Development Program, which basically is you do a Masters of Education with our partner university, Australian Catholic University, and you're coached and mentored by our teaching leadership coaches. So these individuals go into a classroom and do their Masters in Education at the same time. They're amazingly passionate people, and the schools they go into are challenging environments because that's who we work with. And we call it a leadership development program because at Teacher Australia, we believe that being an educator is also about being a leader. And we also aim, like, you know, after people have taught for several years, do they want to go into leadership in the education sector in other ways? So we try and tackle the education inequality issue from lots of angles.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I'm so passionate. Funnily enough, I wanted to be a teacher when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
And my teachers at school said, Sonia, don't be a teacher. And I was thinking, why would they say that? Because they're teachers, so why would they? And then unfortunately their guidance, I decided through that, because of their influence, because of their leadership, I listened to them. I was young and I thought, so I went in a different direction. However, now I teach leadership. So today it's kind of like full circle. I teach leadership and I just love it so much. And I think being a teacher, and I also talk about obviously being a parent, like the greatest leadership roles are being a guardian, being a teacher. And it's such a honor to be a teacher of others, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And the individuals we recruit are amazing individuals. They're really passionate about educating children and tackling the education problem. Yeah, and it's very admirable.
And I mean, in terms of this, like the education challenges, and I look, and it's so good that we're having this conversation. How did it get to? Why have we got such an issue in this space for teachers? Like, obviously, for the issues that we've got in the sector, in the education sector, this is why Teach for Australia has come about, because of those challenges. But why do we see these challenges? And do you? I mean, I actually have some friends that are teachers. You keep hearing that the industry is really trying to get more people to get into teaching. Why do you think we have such a challenge?
My personal take on this, on the challenges, is teaching is a hard job. It is hard. They're very rewarding, but it is a hard job, and it's not well paid. And there is a lot of burnout in the sector. And also what we're hearing is that because there's such a teacher shortage, it's almost a cyclic thing. There's more demands on the teachers that are in the schools because they're making the shortfall up for the teacher shortage, and they get some burnout, so they choose to leave, and it's perpetuating the cycle.
Yeah, it's it's such a great profession to go into, and we need it's such an honor to teach others. We actually have a question. Someone's asked us, do teachers get leadership training sponsored by school?
Do teachers get leadership training sponsored by school? I actually don't know the answer to that. So what I can tell you is at Teacher Australia, when we put an associate, what we call an associate, that's one of our trainees, into our schools, they get leadership coaching and mentoring from us, and any other support they get is up to the individual school and the individual education department. It will be different for each state and different for each school.
It'd be great to see all teachers getting, I'm obviously a huge advocate for everybody getting leadership training or support, but in saying, for instance, your school or organisation isn't sponsoring you, even though that you are teaching them this leadership, Jane, which is amazing. The thing is, if you don't have access to people like Jane and her team, I would highly recommend that you self-develop. So you develop your own leadership skills skills yourself? Because if I could go back in time, I would definitely say to my younger self, and this is why I'm so passionate about teaching teenagers and university students or TAFE students leadership. Like I speak every year at Griffith University, and I've done it for the last decade. They have like a Future Leaders Summit every January. And every year they have 15 to 17-year-olds that come in. There's 200 of them across Queensland that come in. And I spend some time with them teaching them leadership. And I absolutely love it because they sit there and you can see their like minds going, well, I'm like, leadership's not a role. It's an attitude. It's a choice. Pick up a book now, or there's lots of free resources.
I did some leadership development for the university sector in emerging leaders. And one of the largest components of that course was teaching active listening. Stephen Covey's, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, is that what it's called? Yeah. One of the things he talks about is the levels of listening. And, to get to that high level of listening where you're actively listening and being able to listen to respond, listening to listen rather than listening to respond. I found that the students I was teaching management and leadership to, and it's certainly something that I try and develop in people that work for me, the ability to actively listen. And it's a muscle. You really do have to practice it. And I catch myself sometimes getting a little bit frustrated, and I go to open my mouth and go, no, you're responding, you're not listening.
And that's absolutely key. Like that is a superpower. I mean, in your views as well, in terms of all the research and work and everything, obviously you are really passionate about the space as well. What do you think, what else other than being a great listener makes a great leader? What skills would you recommend?
I would recommend, firstly, is ask yourself the question, do you want to be a leader? Because, people do get thrust into leadership rather than choosing to go into leadership. And I think it's really good to be self-aware and self-examining and go, do I really want to be a leader? It can be very lonely. It can be very brutal, but it can be very rewarding. So I think it's really good to ask yourself that question. I also think it's important to know who you are as a person and know who you are as a leadership and your leadership style. So taking the time to be self-aware and learn about yourself, and take the time to reflect on the leaders that you've had in the past, or the leaders you have now, the good and the bad and the ugly. I never want to be like that. I'd love to be like that, and just develop. It's a lifelong learning. It really is.
It is a lot. And it has to start with self. That self-awareness piece is so key. And as well, I know that, we talked about, the leadership awards, and they're all about championing kindness and courage and being inclusive. Why does kindness and why do these elements, why is kindness and courage and being inclusive, why do you think that they're really fundamental today when it comes to leadership?
Kindness is one of my buzzwords, Sonia. One of my favourite quotes is from the Dalai Lama, "My religion is kindness." And I think it's and it's one of my personal values that I have up on my wall here. I think kindness is it's the small gestures. It's being human. It's being who you are. I like to be aware of my team. Monitoring if someone's off, and leaning in and going, are you okay? What can I do for you? And just being genuinely human being and kind, and making people feel welcome and that's okay to be human, and building human connections. It's all about kindness and gratitude. And I think I did a LinkedIn course about artificial intelligence. And one of the things I really took away from that was that the Industrial Revolution turned humans into robots. We went into the manufacturing production line, and it was all about moving the widgets along the line. But the AI is giving us the opportunity for the machines to do that now, and us as humans to come back up into being human. And I think part of being human is being kind and showing kindness for your fellow man. And if you can't do that as a leader, then you need to be able to demonstrate that to everyone. And courage, you also mentioned courage. To me, courage is about having trust. I trust my team. I trust my team to be themselves. I back them to be themselves. They're allowed to experiment, fail, and learn. And I support them in that. It's not always popular with everyone else, but I think being a courageous leader allows me to allow them to be courageous.
Because it's contagious. Kindness and courage are contagious. And I love both of them are values of mine, but I love kindness because where there is, it's a Cinderella quote, where there's kindness, there is magic. And I think that it's the oh gosh, I always get pronouncing that word wrong, but it's that beautiful chemical exchange, and we need more of it. And I agree, like people say to me, oh, but kindness really in leadership, I said it's a superpower. You can still be strong, still be clear and be kind. Like if you want to be in a leadership role, be kind. The best leaders I know are kind leaders. And you're such a great role model. This is why, we've got you as part of this wonderful platform with our leadership awards, and I'm speaking with you today. Who's made a difference in your life? Who in your career and your life has led the way for you, or said something or done something that's made a difference in your life, Jane?
Oh, I've got two great examples that are polar opposites. So the one is what I'd like to be. One is who I never want to be.
Okay.
They're both important examples. I mentioned that I was a mathematician in the defence world as part of my career, and one of the CEOs I had in that environment had a US military background, and he had a serious responsibility, but he was humble and he was kind and he listened. He was a decision maker. He was directive, but he was compassionate and he partnered and he asked questions. And I just thought, wow, what a wonderful man. He was just, and again, I was one of very few females. Actually, I was the only female scientist, one of very few females in the environment. And he embodied inclusivity before it even became a buzzword. He made it pleasurable to go to work and work with him. And I still think about him 20 years on. I think about, am I being like him? Because I admired him so much. On the other extreme, one of those large Australian corporates that I will not mention, terrible environment. This is where I learned what mansplaining is. But to be fair, he mansplained to everyone, not just to the female in the room. And this is where I learned I'm in charge, so you do as I say. They were my experiences, and they are my experiences of I never want to be like that. If I find myself as a leader saying, no, I'm in charge, you just do it because I've said, then it's time to hang up my hat, because I never want to be like that. I want to be this kind, compassionate, inclusive individual. And I do reflect on both those experiences quite often to make sure I'm course correcting if I need to.
I love that. And I always say to people when they're reflecting on leaders in their past or present that have made a difference to them, it's the good and the not so good that you can learn from. And if you could go back in time, and obviously you've had those two different experiences, and it was so good to hear you've had that wonderful experience, because some people I meet don't have that wonderful role model. If you could go back in time to your younger self, what would you say to the younger Jane? Not obviously it's not too far away, not too far back, but younger Jane.
What I had said to myself a couple of years ago, is that what you're asking, Sonia? Yeah. what I wish I'd learned earlier, and what I would say to my younger self is learn to be me. I spent a lot of time not understanding who I am, and that it's okay to be authentic. I was an imposter, trying to fit into my environment and fit into what I thought was acceptable. And what I wish I'd learned earlier is I am who I am. Be confident in who I am. Yes, navigate your environment. Yes, be a responsible corporate citizen, but be confident enough to stand up and say, no, this is me, and I have a heart and a head, and I lead with both, and that's okay.
That's such great advice. I would definitely say that to her as well. Not to Jane, to me, to my younger self. Yeah, it's you kind of, it is that, I mean, when I was younger, it's like, oh, I want to be liked. I want to make sure everyone's happy. And
Yes.
so you would kind of make, you sometimes show up not being your authentic self because you're like, oh, maybe they might not like the real me. And it's like, no, be the real you. It's actually really powerful to embrace that authentic, true, genuine, loving self. And not everyone has to like you. And
it's hard to claw it back, Sonia. Once you've spent some time being inauthentic and being the imposter so you can fit in, it's harder to come back to yourself.
Yeah, it is actually. I work a lot in the construction space, and sometimes I meet a lot of people that do try and act very differently because they're trying to fit into that kind of environment. And when we start to work with them and get them to embrace their true self, it's really freeing. But it is, as I agree, Jane, it's so challenging to bring yourself back to that. So what's next for you? What's next for you, and what's on the horizon for Teaching for Australia?
Well, what's next for me is that I'm enjoying being the Chief Operating Officer at Teach for Australia at the moment. We're in a transformation agenda, so I'm embracing taking us forward to the next stage. We're in a big growth agenda. We're trying to recruit more of these amazing individuals to have more teachers out there in these low socioeconomic schools. So we have some challenges in front of us to recruit more and to embrace transformation and grow, and in an environment where we're constantly seeking funding. So as being a not-for-profit, it's not a guaranteed thing. So we work on many levels to make this happen.
So how can people that are watching or listening today support you, other than if you think, wow, what a great opportunity and I want to know more? Everybody, please contact Jane and Teaching for Australia. She's also on LinkedIn as well. But what else could we do to support you?
One of our greatest ways of spreading the message is word of mouth. Tell other people. Say, have you heard of this organisation? Go and look them up. Go to our website and look at our impact report. The impact report on the website is a great read, and got some great graphics there about the students that we've helped and the teachers that we've helped and how much impact we've had across we're having our 15-year anniversary this year. So the impact that we've had in 15 years, it's great. Spread the word. Go and talk to people.
I will definitely be spreading the word, and this is part of that, being on this live and podcast today. We'll make sure that we're out there advocating and supporting you as well. I know the team at Leadership HQ are very passionate about education and teaching, especially our future generations and younger generations. So anything we can do to help, we would love that. But let me ask you just one final question. How do you sharpen your saw? I know you love Covey's, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He talks about sharpening the saw. How do you keep teaching and educating yourself?
I do read a lot of books and listen to podcasts and read articles, and I've dropped the pretense that I'm ever going to finish a book or an article or a podcast. If I can learn one thing from one book or one podcast, then that's great. And I can always go back to it later. And I try and integrate it in and experiment with it in some way. But that's the technical side. But I will also admit that I have a therapist. I go to therapy and I talk about, to keep building my confidence and to keep being a vulnerable leader. I believe vulnerability is very important in leadership. And in order to do that, I need to sharpen my saw by going and making sure I'm the best I can be.
I love that. Thank you. I also have a counsellor myself and a coach and a mentor. But it's so important. Like people say to me around, obviously you keep, your body's really important and taking care of your body is really important. What about your mindset? Like and also is around how you are dealing with different trauma and thoughts and things like that. It's and having that space to talk about your feelings and help you navigate. So make sure that you, asking for help and those sort of, I think that's all part of self-kindness.
I think so. And it's also very nice to have an environment where you can just be completely honest. You can have the best colleagues in the world, but you can't really open up the wounds sometimes. You need to go to outside. And also picking up on something you said there is I go for a walk every day and, get some physical activity as well.
Yeah, walking's so important. There's so much research and data around the power of walking. And so, thank you so much for sharing that. So is there anything else you'd love to say before we close off today, wonderful live and podcast? Is there anything you'd love to share with the audiences that are listening?
I would just like to say thank you, Sonia. Thank you for having me on the podcast today. It's my first podcast ever and I've enjoyed it very much. And and what I'd like to share with everyone is if you truly want to be a leader and it's in your soul where you go, oh, I want to lead, embrace it. Go out there and look for the opportunities and figure it out how you get there.
Thank you. Cheryl, thank you for saying thank you. So we just got a little thank you there. It was wonderful. You did fantastic for your first podcast. It was such a joy talking with you today. And I'm very excited about meeting you in person very shortly as well. So thank you so much. And if there's anything that we can do to support you and anyone that's watching, listening, please check out Teaching for Australia and their incredible work they're doing here in Australia for our schools and our beautiful children and our future generations. So thank you so much for also creating future leaders as well. Yes, congratulations on your first podcast. You were fantastic. And another one here, loved it, Jane. Jane is an exceptional leader and our team is so, so lucky to have her guiding and supporting us.
Oh, thank you.
How wonderful is that?
Lovely.
All right. Thank you so much again. And please, she's just got hashtag guiding. Or little asterisks. Oh, don't worry, I do that all the time. I totally need spell check all the time. But I know that you're probably racing. But we got the gist of the how wonderful your comment was there, Louise. Thank you so much for posting that. That was awesome. So thanks again, Jane. And everybody stay kind and stay courageous and stay tuned for Leadership with Sonia again very, very soon. Take care.
Thank you, Sonia. See you on Saturday.
See you on Saturday. Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to the podcast Leadership with Sonia. Find out more about Sonia, her work and more podcasts at soniamcdonald.com.au and reach out to her and her fabulous team to learn more.